by the title, this is my teen pregnancy story. And we will make another video on how we met after this one. So, okay. It all started in February, in the beginning of February this year, 2017. I remember that I went to go to sleep one night and I rolled over on my chest and it hurt. And then I was thinking to myself, why does it hurt? Like, my period is not coming. Sorry for all the people who think this is a TMI, but. And then 2 days later, I was on the bus on my way home from school, and usually I can stay up all day. But when I was on the bus, I caught myself falling asleep. Every turn we would take, I would hit my head on the window because I was falling asleep. And then that afternoon, I came home and I went to sleep, and when I woke up, my mom brought me McDonald's, and the smell of the McDonald's was so disgusting. I remember I drank the frappe and I had to throw it away because it was nasty, but I didn't get why it was nasty. Like, usually I'll drink it and it'll be perfectly fine, but this time I was like, ew. So I threw it away. And then after a while, I just felt different. Like, it's a feeling you get, you just know. So I went and I told my boyfriend, and I was like, I think I'm pregnant. And then his reaction was, are you serious? Like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I think so. And he was like, okay, well, just wait a little bit. Wait till your period comes, and if your period doesn't come, then we'll go buy you a test. So then I was like, okay. But I remember going to school, and I had told one of my friends that I was close with at the time, and I remember I told her that I thought that I was pregnant. That is the worst mistake that I made. She was the first person that I told, and then after I told her, it went around the whole school. Everyone knew, and I did not even know if I was for sure yet. Everyone in the whole school was talking about me. They're like, oh yeah, look, there she is. Look, she thinks she's pregnant. All this stuff. It was the worst thing ever. So then after everybody was talking about it, I went to a teacher who I'm not going to say names, but I went to a teacher that I was close with, and I was like, I think I'm pregnant. And I remember his reaction. He goes, well, first of all, you're dumb. Second, if you are, you need to tell your mom. And that was the one thing that I was avoiding. I did not want to tell my mom. Like, I remember looking at him and my eyes got all watery once he said, you need to tell your mom. I was like, oh no. This is why I came and told you, you know? Like, no, I don't want to go tell my mom. But then he was like, no, you need to go tell your mom. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to wait a week and tell her because I don't want to tell her and then it not be true. So it's like, okay, I'll just wait a week. And then me and my boyfriend kept talking about, like, the responsibility and everything. Like, we were scared. We're 15. We were scared, yeah. So then that week passes, and that day I was like, okay, today I'm going to tell my mom. And then my mom comes home from work. I was like, okay, yep, I'm going to tell her. And she comes in mad, yelling. And I was looking at her like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you mad? And she did not want to talk to me, anything. So I was like, okay, weird. So we ended up at her friend's house that night, and my boyfriend texted me saying, my mom knows. And I was like, your mom knows what? My mom knows that you're pregnant. And I said, how did your mom know? She said, your mom called my mom saying that the school called her saying that I was pregnant. And after I heard that, my face got pale and my heart dropped to my stomach. I looked at my mom, who was sitting next to me but couldn't see my phone, and I looked at her and I was like, so that's why she was acting weird. So then I told him, well, then I'm just going to tell her before she tells me that she knows. So that night when we got home, I went in her room and I was like, Mom, I have to tell you something. And she looked at me, she was like, what? That what your dean said was true? And I said, what did my dean say? And then she said, he told me that you told one of the teachers, and one of the teachers told him, so that the teacher wouldn't lose his job, that you were pregnant. And I looked at her and I said, yeah, but I don't know yet. And after I said that, I started crying. Because the face she had when she was talking to me, she had the most disappointed look, like, ever. She was looking at me like, why would you do this to me? Why? So I looked at her, and she wasn't yelling, she wasn't angry, she wasn't, like, screaming, gonna hit me like I thought she was. Like, I thought she was gonna kick me out the house. I thought she was gonna say, okay, go get your stuff and go move in with your boyfriend, since he's the one who got you pregnant, because I'm not taking care of you. But no, she just sat there and she told me how disappointed she is in me, and how she thought that I was gonna do better for myself, and that she wanted me to go to college and be something in life and not let this be a setback on me. And she was just telling us she was disappointed in me. And then after that, she was like, now you have to go and deal with everybody talking about you, and you have to go tell your brothers and sisters before somebody else tells them. You have to tell your dad. You have to tell your stepdad. You have to go talk to Victor's parents, which is my boyfriend. And I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And after that, she told me that I had an appointment to go get checked on Wednesday. So Wednesday comes around, and we get to the appointment, and when I go in there, it's a bunch of older ladies. It's an OBGYN office with a bunch of older ladies. So right when I walked in there, they were all staring at me. I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh my gosh, we need to hurry up because I do not want to be in here. All of them are looking at me like, look at this little girl. And I was like, okay. So then she said, well, you think you're an adult. Go check yourself in. So I had to go check myself in. I remember my grandma was there, and my mom was there. And when they asked what I wanted for the appointment, or what we had scheduled, it was for birth control. Because, you know, when you go get birth control, you have to take a urine test, and then the urine test either tells you if it's positive or negative, but they always do it before any birth control test. So then they took me back, they called my name, told me to pee in the cup, and once I peed in the cup, they came back and took my blood out of my finger. I guess that's what they do. And then she came and she was like, well, your pee test was negative. And I looked at her and she was like, is there any questions that you have to ask before we do this? Like, she was going to tell me all the birth controls and what kind of, like, what they do and how there's different types of them. So I was like, well, I have a question. She said yes. And I said, well, I think I'm pregnant, but I think it's too early for a urine test. And she said, why do you think that? And I said, because, and then I told her all the reasons. And she said, okay, well, there's only one more test left. We have to take your blood. So I went back into another room and they took my blood, and then they told me to come back and schedule an appointment for 2 weeks, and if anything came up that they would call me sooner. So then I went and I scheduled the appointment. Meanwhile, my mom, I left her in the waiting room because they asked me if I wanted her to go back, and I said no. So I left her in the waiting room, and while she was out there and I went out there to reschedule an appointment, she was confused, and she was like, what's going on? What's happening? And I said, well, they told me my pee test came out negative, but they're going to take my blood. And she said, why are they going to take your blood? And I was like, because I think that I'm pregnant. And she said, well, if the pee test came out negative, then it's negative. And I was like, but it can be too early. So then she was like, okay, fine, whatever. And then we left, and I remember a week passed after the appointment, and I could not wait anymore. I kept telling my mom, did they call you? Did they call you? She kept saying no, which I think they called her, she just didn't want me to know that they called her. So then I texted my boyfriend's mom, and I said, is there a way that you can buy me a pregnancy test to see now, because my period is due in 1 day? And she said, yeah, I'll bring it over to the house in an hour, so be ready. So I was waiting, an hour comes, and she hands me the box, but she puts it in like a little gift box, and she has the paper, the tissue paper, the colored one over it, and she's like, okay, here, so that they don't think that it's something else. Because at the time I did not tell any of my siblings or my stepdad or anybody. So I went in the bathroom, I grabbed my phone, and I called my boyfriend on Skype. And I peed in a cup while he was on the phone, and then I was like, okay, well, are you ready to see this? And he was like, yeah, just do it. So then I dipped it in the cup for 5 seconds, and then I put the cap on. I had to wait 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes were the longest 5 minutes of my life. I remember flipping the pregnancy test like this and flipping it at the camera for him to see, because I didn't want to see it. And I was like, okay, no, you look, I don't want to look. And he was like, okay. The whole time he was looking, and then all of a sudden I look at the camera and his whole face gets red. And I was like, what? And he was like, look at it. So I looked at it, and when I seen it, it was a little faint line. And the faint line, obviously there was 2. So it meant pregnant. And I was like, no way. Like, I was shocked. Like, I started crying. I remember he was like, everything is going to be okay. I'm here for you. This is all a part of God's plan. It's okay. I'm here. Like, he was like telling me that he was going to be there and he was going to support me and the baby no matter what. And then after I got off the phone and I calmed down, my mom was coming home, and then I remember telling myself, okay, now I have to tell my mom. So when my mom got home from work, I went and ran to the door, and I was like, Mom, come to my room. I have to tell you something. And when she hugged me, my eyes teared up because I was scared to tell her. So I got all teary-eyed, and she looked at me and she started laughing. She was like, girl, what's wrong with you? And I was like, nothing, just come to my room. So when she came to my room, I grabbed the pregnancy test out of a bag. It was wrapped in a bag in my dresser. And I grabbed it and I pulled it out and I handed it to her. And when I handed it to her, she looked at it and she was like, it doesn't say that you're pregnant. And I was like, Mom, yes it does. Look, there's 2 lines. And she was like, well, then why is the other one faded? And I was like, I don't know. So I remember her grabbing her phone and she started to Google, can you be pregnant if there's a faint line? And on Google, I guess it said yes. And I remember when she looked at it and I was looking over her phone, she left my room and went into her room. And then my aunt came in the room and she was like, show me it. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, show me it. Your mom's crying. I know. You're pregnant. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, show me it. So then I grabbed the test and I showed it to her, and she was like, and she just walked out of my room. And my grandma comes in the room and she was like, well, I knew that you were this whole time. I can just tell. And then she hugged me and she said that everything's going to be okay, that she still wants me to look forward and don't let this set me back for my future, that they all want me to go to school and be something in life. And then after my mom came back in the room, she was like, call your boyfriend and tell him that we all need to have a talk. And I was like, okay. So then we all talked about what we were going to do for school and how we were going to finish this year, reminding you guys that I am only in 9th grade. He's in 9th grade too. He plays baseball. I was a cheerleader, and after my mom found out, I had to quit. My mom had to call my coach and tell her that I had to quit because my grades were bad, and grades are more important than a sport. So after I quit the cheer team, I started to wear baggier clothes while I was walking around school, and I didn't want anybody to know that I was pregnant. I didn't want anybody to know, even though they all thought that I was already, and they were all talking about me. And then a month passed and I went to the doctor with my boyfriend, and they were like, okay, well, here's your results on your blood test. And I was like, oh yeah, finally, when we already knew. And they're like, yeah, here, you're positive pregnancy. And I was like, oh, great. And I remember looking at my boyfriend. The doctor was like, I'm going to go get you some paperwork. I'll be back. He closed the door, and my mom looked at both of us, and she was like, thanks for making me a grandma. And I was like, oh, okay, sorry. And the months progressed, the bigger I got. I had to walk around school like that. Everyone had to see me like that. Kids were literally so mean to me. Like, yeah, I understand it's not. A month passed, and I went to the doctor with my boyfriend, and they were like, okay, well, here's your results on your blood test. And I was like, oh yeah, finally, when we already knew. And they're like, yeah, here, you're positive pregnancy. And I was like, oh, great. And I remember looking at my boyfriend. The doctor was like, I'm going to go get you some paperwork. I'll be back. He closed the door, and my mom looked at both of us. She was like, thanks for making me a grandma. And I was like, oh, okay, sorry. And the months progressed, the bigger I got. I had to walk around school like that. Everyone had to see me like that. Kids were literally so mean to me. Like, yeah, I understand it's not normal to go and get pregnant as a teenager, but no, I didn't do it on purpose. And no, it's not acceptable for kids to go around and talk so bad about you that you do not even want to go to school. And it wasn't even just the kids, it was the teachers too. I've had kids tell me, go get an abortion. You're going to ruin your boyfriend's life. You're going to do nothing. How could you do this to yourself? And I even got a comment saying, who's the baby's dad? Because when you were in middle school, you were a hoe. And I just sat there and I looked at them like, oh my gosh, seriously, like people are actually just going to go around and cause so much drama out of this when it's none of their business in the first place. I didn't go posting at places, oh my god, I'm pregnant, oh my god, everybody, I want you guys to look at me, I'm pregnant. No, I didn't go around saying that. I just wanted to focus on school. I wanted to finish school, get through 9th grade year. I wanted to make sure that I would pass and not fail, even though I had to go to doctor's appointments and get checked out of school constantly, or if I was sick I had to leave. I just wanted to finish school, like it wasn't that big of a deal. And then I remember one day I was at school and a teacher came and told her class that my baby was going to be ugly, and I was not even in the class. So I remember walking to the hallway to go to lunch, and a bunch of kids just came up to me, and they were like, you know, this teacher said this, this, and this about you. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, she just said it in the class. Two kids were talking about it, and she went along with it, and she, like, got into the conversation. And I was like, really? So I was so mad. Like, I don't care if it was a little comment or what. Like, you're the teacher. You're supposed to tell them, no, don't do that. Like, okay, come on now. Like, stop. No, we're not going to talk about her. She's not in the room to defend herself, so no. No, she got into it and said something too. So I was like, okay. Then I went and I called my mom and I said, Mom, this teacher just said this, this, and this. And she was like, what? And she said, what? And I was like, yeah, she said that. And she was like, okay, I'll call you back. To find out that she went and called the principal. And I guess the assistant principal at the school did not want my mom to talk to the principal because he thought that it was not a big, like, thing. I don't know, a big situation to be handled with the principal in it, that he could have handled it himself. So he called me into the room, and I remember I missed the beginning of lunch because of it, and he called me into the room, and basically when I was in there, he was just putting me down about it, like saying, oh, this is all your fault anyways, like, why do you care? You should have never went and got pregnant because people are going to talk about you no matter what, so why are you in here trying to do this? Like, he made me feel. Then I remember leaving his office so mad I was going to cry, but I held it in because I didn't want anyone in the hallways to stop me and ask me what was wrong, just to be nosy in my life. So right when I seen my boyfriend, I looked at him and he knew something was wrong. And he asked me what was wrong, and right when he asked me, I started crying. I just felt so bad that we were going through so much stress with the baby. And then the fact that everybody else was talking about us, even teachers were talking about us, putting us down, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I was just like, okay, yeah, I can't do this anymore. Like, why are people so mean? Why do people always have to be my business? It came to a point where I didn't even want to go to school anymore. I did not want to go to school to hear somebody else say something else about me or my boyfriend. I didn't want to go to school anymore. So I finally talked to my mom about what everybody was saying, and then she was like, well, once the baby comes, all of this that they're saying is not gonna matter. Like, it's, who cares? Who cares what anybody says? And then I was like, okay. So I finished my year of school. He finished his year of school too, even though we had all that going on. We both ended up finishing school with a GPA higher than 3.7. I got all A's and a B every semester.